on the bigger joints, it's much easier. It's just some of these slabs, they didn't quite work out that nice. It wasn't the best pack, to be honest. Basically, when putting a patio by hand, sand cement, the most important thing to get right is the mix. If you're using a gun, well, you want to get the mix right, full stop. But certainly when using a gun, the mix has to be bang on. So we've got some concentrated feb direct into the mix. About 10 ml of this concentrated feb straight into the mixer. Don't put it in your gauge in water, because if all the water doesn't go in, then you won't get all the feb in. Then you want your water is going to depend on how wet or dry your sand is. I've just done the half a bucket I've started with there. We're going to mix this 4 parts sand, 1 part cement. So we'll go in increments of 4 each time and just see if we need more water as we go. Keep your shovelfuls even with the sand on, so nice even shovelful. And your cement needs to be the same size as the sandful. Like so. I just keep going like that. We're going to put a total of either 16 or 20 in there. 20 is probably pushing it in these, but a little bit of water with that. We don't want to sand stuck to the back. So key thing is patience here. You've got to wait for the mix to wet up on its own, because that is what the plasticiser will help you do. That's the only way you'll get a good mix, so just a bit of patience and let it mix. See, that's coming together nicely now. If you get any loose bits out the joints, any leaves, anything like that, just get them going. Start with half a barrel there for now. Right, make sure all our joints are clean. And now it's just a case of filling the point and gun up and going for it. And try and have minimal overspill. There's a couple of smaller joints here where I can't help it too much, but I'm not too worried, it doesn't stain too badly. Just don't use brick acid to clean it off, because that's the wrong stuff for this. There is things you can get to clean it off, but brick acid is not one. Because it basically makes all the little metals rust in the slab. So it's just a case of just working along with these joints. There's nothing, working as fast or as slow as what you can manage. Obviously the narrow joints you've got to be a bit more careful. The nozzle on this pointing gun you can adjust. depending on the size of the joints as well, so you can have a play with that. The good thing with this gun is it really forces it in all those gaps. I will change the camera angle now so we can see it a bit closer up. Just need some patience just to work across slowly. It's surprising what you can get covered in a short amount of time. I'll change this camera angle now. Put the gun up. And see, this mix is staying tidy. There's no waterized to the surface, so this means it will go through the gun nicely. Now, if you've got water sitting on the surface of the mix when you push the barrow, then it's just come out the mix itself. That means it is not being mixed well enough. Make sure you've got enough surplus material sitting on top of the joint, because you'll be compressing it, so you want some surplus material to work with. It's much better to have too much sitting on top than not enough, because it is a nightmare trying to top a joint up afterwards, especially when you're trying to top it up with stuff that might be fresh. So bear that in mind. You can use smaller towels to load this if you're not as confident. Yeah, on the bigger joints it's much easier. It's just some of these slabs, they didn't quite work out that nice. It wasn't the best pack, to be honest. I had much nicer batches of sandstone than this. But that's the luck of the draw sometimes with the sandstone and the natural materials. You can't guarantee what your sizing is going to be. Again, don't worry too much about any overspill. The staining is minimal in my opinion, especially if you're getting it off after it's gone off a bit. I always try and just complete the lines I'm working on, so you're not moving all the time with your lines. And don't worry if you drop bits like that, don't worry, they'll come off. I'll put this on a time lapse shortly because you get the gist of it now. And we'll have a look now when it's gone off a bit. So I'm just going to show now the sort of hardness that you're wanting when you start striking off. So some of this, there is slightly variation on joint depth, so some of it will be harder than other bits. But you can see, this is what you want it like, when all the bits that come off, they don't mark a paving because it's all dry enough, basically. As you can see where all the overspill was, there's no staining on there. So you just got to, obviously that one stains, that's a bit I've dropped on it, but it's a case of running over the jointing bar. This is what I mean about leaving it proud, because it's surprising how much extra you do need on top just to compress in, you know. Get all those little bits out. And then what we do then with all these bits, we get the blower on it and they'll just simply blow off. You can brush them off as well, but the blower is a very quick way of doing it. But again, if you want to brush them off, I wouldn't brush them off yet. I'd brush them off in a bit, just leave them go that bit drier, because you don't want to mark the joint. You can see it's just marking that joint. So you want to leave it go a bit more anyway before you brush it off. But that's a good thing with a blower, is you can brush that off instantly and it won't affect the joint. And again, timings for when this goes off, it can just vary. You've got joint depth, you've got how much wind is there, what your temperatures are like, if there's any moisture in the joints. So, you know, this was probably an hour in before I started pointing it, the first bits of it. But, you know, other days you could be, you know, a good few hours before you can get on it. So you've really got to keep going back to the start and just checking that you can get on it. But when you do start pointing it, it's nice and quick to do. You can really cover some ground on the pointing. And you can just see it streaking there. That's where it's probably getting a touch wet. But I keep going. There is a bit of a breeze today, so that is helping everything go off a bit. You can just see that streaking. That's telling me it's too wet there. There's just a bit too much moisture left in that. Still doable. See, that's definitely too wet there. There will be some joints you come across further up that are gone off, but that you put in a lot later because of joint depths, you know. I'm using a Marshalltown jointer. It's type, I can't see the numbers, I think it's type 80. There's a few different brands you can get for this. I'm using the wider part of the jointer there. There's two parts, narrow and wide, but the wider one means the joints aren't recessed too much then. And make sure you have a kneel mat or whatever, or knee pads. You don't want to be doing it without. So yeah, the main things with it is just making sure the joints aren't too wet. Equally, you don't want to go where they're too dry, because it's yeah, you don't want to go any drier than what this is now, really. That's what I think. But if you look, all the bits that fall off, no staining. So that's what you get when it's just the right dryness. Really iron that joint in out. And it makes a lovely hard joint then. And just make sure you get all these joins between the joints there. And if you're laying man-made slabs, all the joints are the same width, it's a much easier job. Some of these joints are big and small with the sandstone. As you can see, it's just getting on the wet side there, so we know we can leave that a bit longer over here. I'll show you quickly now what we do with the blower then. And we'll blow off down to here and we can just sweep that up later. We don't want to be blowing it back onto the stuff we're doing. So just simply now it's either you can leave it in piles and brush it up, or put it on here. We're going to put it on here and brush this up. It's dry enough, it's not going to stain that. Any bits you got like that. And then any bits then like that, we'll be running the soft brush over it all later as well, so it will take care of all of that. I'm not worried about any bits like that because that will simply come out. They're not ironed in. They're not ironed in at all. So yeah, in a bit we'll run the soft sweeping brush over all of it. And it'll knock any of these little bits off, it'll take care of them. This is just to get the basic bits off, just to save a bit of weight with the brush basically. But obviously we want to leave this go off a bit more first. Right, so this section now, we'll just show, it just needs a final brush now to get any final little bits off. Don't worry about any little bits like that, it looks like staining, but that'll be fine. It will not stain that heavy at all. It's normal on a patio. So just diagonally brush it. Again, any bits like that, they'll come off fine. This brushing is just to knock any final little bits off. Just do it diagonally so you're not dragging up the joint. Obviously, if you're marking the joints, it's still too wet, you know. Any little bits you see that need joining up with the point in can be done. There's a couple of little bits there. Obviously you don't want to leave it go too long that you can't get on those bits. So yeah, if any bits need smoothing out like that, they'll join there. Any bits like that, easy enough to still get.
If you're worried about it drying out too much, you can always give it a light spray with the hose on a very fine mist. But basically, that is pretty much all the bases covered with pointing a patio by hand. I think in the world of resin mortars and everything, it's still doable. Yeah, don't get put off in the world of resin mortars and everything like that. That sounds meant pointing us out the question, because there's still a place for it. It takes a bit more time, but you can save a bit of money doing it as well. There's a bit more labour involved, but the joints can last as long if done right. So what you can do if it's going off like mad is just have the hose on the mist and just give it a very light spray. Like so. Don't go crazy. You can do little and often, but just don't go too mad with it. It doesn't need too much. Just to help the joints. This is only if they're starting to go white. And say it just needs a damping on the surface, nothing more. You don't want to start the cement running. If you're in the winter doing this, it won't need doing. It's just because it's the summer and it's windy and sunny.